Hey, how's it going everyone? This is Brendan Bias from ChicCheckIt.com and welcome to another Tutorial Tuesday. In this week's tutorial, I'm going to be doing another recreation tutorial, which was something that someone had actually requested of me to do. And this recreation is of the Shiny Episode 1 speed art by Steve Dionisieux. I don't know. Steve, your name confuses me. I don't know how to pronounce it. But anyway, this guy made a pretty cool little 3D text effect here with some intersecting lines and some like grungy stuff and wings. I don't know. It was a pretty cool effect, but I think mine is a little more epic. Check that out, guys. We got some really cool 3D text. It's kind of following the style from the original video and all that, but mine has a whole lot more like debris going on. It's got some epic like wings and stuff and the intersecting lines, which are like different colors and stuff. And we even have some like grunge texturing going on in the background. I think this is just freaking epic. I love it. And you guys are going to learn how to do that right now. But of course, some things that you should probably take into consideration are the software requirements. First of all, I'm using Photoshop CC. You can use Photoshop CS6, CS5, or even earlier than that. We're not doing anything overly complicated Photoshop-wise. However, we are using Cinema 4D as well. So this is my first Photoshop Cinema 4D compilation, which will be kind of interesting to say the least here. So what do you say we get started and make ourselves some 3D text, huh? So let's open up Cinema 4D and, make yourself a new document or whatever the heck this is called, like a 3D scene. I have no idea. And let's start off by going into these little splines up here and adding in some text. And we will just go to the object properties and change the text to shiny. And you can use whatever the heck you want for the font, but the one that I've been using is called FoughtKnight, and I can find the download link for you in the description if you want to use this for yourself. And so just a quick little rundown on how you can navigate through this little window here. You hold down number 3 and click and drag to kind of look around and pan around the space here. If you hold down the number 2 and click and drag up and down, you'll be able to zoom in and out. If you hold down number 1 and click and drag, then it's kind of it's just kind of like panning side to side and up and down. So it's just a quick little rundown for you guys that are new to Cinema 4D. So let's go ahead and go up top and click this weird little rounded cube here, and let's go down and add a extrude NURBS. It'll just click and drag our text into the extrude NURBS to make a very simple 3D extrusion here. And let's go down into our materials and create a new material. And for this, we'll keep it pretty simple. We'll just put the color down for the reds. We'll put that into somewhere around the 70 area. And then we'll just very slightly put down the green value more towards 180 some odd in that range. And we'll just click and drag this sucker onto our text, and then we'll make it this cool, like, tealish green color. I really have no idea what color this is. But anyway, something that we're going to do here, let's go ahead and go to the extrude NURBS up in our objects up here, and we'll close it up. And we are going to copy and paste this 3 times, so that way we have a total of 4 of the same object. And let's just kind of pan off to the side over here. And we'll grab extrude NURBS 1, and we're going to use this blue arrow and click and drag that to the left while holding the shift key until it says 30 centimeters. At least I think it's centimeters. I haven't used this program that much yet. So anyway, we'll go to extrude NURBS 2 and drag that out to 60, and then we'll take extrude NURBS 3 and we'll drag that out to 90. And so we got this cool like quadruple set of text here, which is, I don't know, it's pretty cool in my opinion. And so anyway, let's just keep looking at this from a side view for just 1 second, because we're going to create another new material. And for this, we'll keep it white, but let's go to the basic options for the material and add in a slight glow. And let's go to the glow options and change the inner strength to about 10%, and we'll change the outer strength to 20%. So relatively straightforward. Let's click and drag this new material onto the second set of text and the third set of text. So that way we have an alternating blue-white, blue-white. Nice and straightforward. So let's just kind of look at this head on for a moment here, and let's add in a new light. And we're simply going to click and drag this so it's slightly above the text like so. And then we will add in another light, and I'll drag this off to the side so I can use this blue arrow to just click and drag this a little bit forward so that way it's kind of like a center light for the text. So let's just take a look at how this is looking. I think that'll work. So let's go into our render settings right here, and we are going to change our width to 1920, our height, I meant to tab down to the height for 1080, and let's go to the save options, and let's save the format as a PNG, and we will save it with an alpha channel so that way we don't get that black background behind it. And for the file, let's just let's go and find a folder. I've already got one set up, and we will just call this, I'm just going to call it Shiny Tut, so that way it's a little bit different from all the other shiny things that I've got going on, and click save. And I will exit out of that because I want to set up my scene just a little bit better. Let's just pan this down and maybe look at this a little bit more head on, and then zoom in, just so that way we get a more close feeling to the text here. And I'm thinking that it's looking pretty good, so let's go up to this little middle icon to render to the picture viewer. And that should automatically render it out to that folder that we just set up. So let's go ahead and see if it did that for us. And we'll open this up. And there it is, Shiny Tut. So let's go ahead and bring up Photoshop, and let's bring up our folder. And let's click and drag this PNG here into Photoshop. And there we go, we got ourselves some shiny text. Nice and simple. So let's create a new layer and put it below layer 0. Maybe we'll just call this black. And let's just fill this in using Shift Backspace, and we'll use black as our color there and hit OK. And let's go to layer 0, and we'll duplicate that twice by hitting Control or Command J twice on the keyboard. And let's name these Blur 1 and Blur 2. And then the third one we'll name Shiny. So let's go to Blur 1 and bring up the Transform tool by hitting Control or Command T. And we will just rotate this ever so slightly off to the side like so. And hit the check mark up top to commit the transformation. And then we'll go to Blur 2, Control T, and rotate that the other direction like so. Check mark that. And then let's go ahead and select both Blur 1 and Blur 2 and put the opacity down to maybe 10%. And then let's go ahead and select Blur 1, go to Filter, Blur, and apply a Gaussian blur. Of course, you don't really have to do this if you don't want to, but I think it adds a nice little feeling to it. And we'll hit OK. And then let's select Blur 2 and reapply that exact Gaussian blur by hitting Control or Command F, which basically just repeats the last filter. And let's go ahead and select Shiny, and we'll bring up the Transform tool again with Control or Command T. And I'm just going to click and drag one of the corners in while holding the Alt and the Shift key, so that way it scales up or down from the center, and it keeps its aspect ratio. And we'll just make this slightly smaller than it originally was, just so that way it kind of looks like Blur 1 and Blur 2 are like an epic, like, I don't know, background behind the text. So let's go ahead and hit that check mark up top. And this time we'll select Shiny, Blur 1, and Blur 2 all at the same time. And this time let's size all of these down to roughly the same size. And we'll put that somewhere around right about there. Looks pretty good. And we will hit the check mark once again to commit that transformation. Alrighty then, let's go ahead and make our shiny text look a little bit nicer looking. So we'll select Shiny, and we will go and add in a drop shadow to it. And for this, all we're going to do is, let's actually put up the opacity to about 85%. We'll put down the distance, and then let's just amp up the size by eye. Somewhere around 20 seems to be like a good size right about now. And let's also add in an outer glow. We'll change that to color dodge, and let's set that to a color of white. And for this, let's put the size to about 25 pixels. And we're not going to see anything happen right now because there's not a whole lot going on in the background. But no worries, once we start adding in some more things behind it, you'll start seeing that glow a little bit better. So let's hit OK. And let's see, what should we do next? I think we can add in a slight little texture here just to make things look a little bit more interesting. So what I'm going to grab is a texture from VideoCopilot Evolution DVD, which is not a DVD I use very often, but it's got some cool stuff in it. And I'm going to drag in Texture 20 Grayscale, and we'll drag that in here. And I'm going to size this up like so, till it's about the right size, and hit that little check mark. And all I'm going to do here is change the blend mode to overlay, and then set the opacity to 25%. And there you go, you have a nice slight grunge feeling on top of the effect here. Okay, so now that we've got a cool little feeling here, let's start creating the rectangles. So I'm going to go and select the black background layer, and let's go grab our rectangle tool on the left hand side. And before I make any rectangle shapes or anything like that, let's go to the fill and change the color here. And the color we're going to be using is, it's kind of a cyan color, but it'll be slightly more towards the green side of it. So somewhere around there looks like a good color to me. And I'm just going to make a color right around here looks like a good color to me. So if you want to see the number or use this number, it's 09D0C9. And we'll hit OK. And we'll close that up. And we'll just click and drag a randomly shaped rectangle. Somewhere around here looks like a good size to me, so I'll let go. There you go, nice size rectangle. And let's go grab our path selection tool off to the left-hand side here. And I want to create a duplicate of this rectangle. So the easiest way to do that, since this is a shape layer, is to hold the Alt key or the Option key if you're on a Mac. And we'll click and drag that rectangle off to the right. And if you hold down the Shift key while you do so, it will make sure that it stays parallel to the original. And we'll just put this right around here, looks like a good distance to me. And once again, holding the Alt key, click and drag that rectangle off to the right, and then hold down the Shift key, and we'll put that roughly the same distance away. Right there, looks pretty good to me. Alright, so now let's go ahead and select all three of these by shift-clicking the remaining two rectangles. You should notice that it's selected by seeing the little anchor points on the end selected. So we'll select all three of those like so. And let's go ahead and transform this by hitting Control or Command T on our keyboard. And I'm just going to rotate this one about 30 degrees off to the right. And let's position this a little bit more in the center. And I'm going to click and drag one of the top anchor points up to the right while holding the Alt key to kind of stretch it out a little bit. So somewhere around there looks like pretty good, and I'll hit the check mark to commit that transformation. And for those of you that are using Adobe Photoshop CC, they kind of changed the way that that rectangles and other shape layers work right off the bat. So it's going to give you this little dialog asking if you want to convert that live shape into a regular path. And that's completely fine, so we'll hit yes in that instance. Alright, so let's go ahead and duplicate these rectangles by hitting Control or Command J on our keyboard. And with this rectangle 1 copy still selected, let's go ahead and change the fill of this to a slightly dark, kind of grayish shade of that, that same color there. So let's do somewhere around right there, looks like a good spot to me. 1, 2, 1D, 1D. Let's hit OK and see how it looks. Okay. So it's being a rebel today. For some reason, sometimes when you convert these into a regular shape from a live shape, it doesn't want to update the color. And I can try this again. So it just kind of stays that same color. So to fix that, we'll just go to the effects, and we'll give it a color overlay. And let's go ahead and make it that, that slightly green cyan. I'll put this color down and to the left. So that right there looks pretty decent. Maybe I'll go a little bit darker and hit OK, and hit OK again. And I'm going to right-click this layer and click, where is it? We'll click Rasterize Layer Style. So that way it's just a flattened set of rectangles now. Okay, so now that we've successfully changed up the color, let's bring up the Transform tool for this by hitting Control or Command T. And I'm going to right-click and flip this sucker horizontally. And then I'm also going to rotate this a little bit more So that way it's a little bit more perpendicular, but not entirely so. But maybe not so much rotation, and I'll move this a little bit off to the side. So somewhere around there looks pretty good, and I can hit that check mark. And I'm just going to reposition this rectangle and put the teal one off to the right-hand side a little bit more. And that doesn't look half bad to me, so I'm thinking that looks good. So one thing that I want to do for these different set of rectangles is make it look like they're kind of interweaving with each other, sort of like the fibers in a piece of cloth. So when we're doing this, I don't want to bother looking at this shiny text the whole time. So let's actually turn these off for the time being, and let's select rectangle 1 copy. And you know what? I'm just going to rename this gray rectangle. And let's rename this one teal rectangle, since that seems to be a pretty appropriate word here. And I want to apply a drop shadow to gray rectangle, so let's apply that right now. And for this, we'll just put the distance to 0 and the size up to about 20. And you can see we get that nice drop shadow there. We'll hit OK. And I want to copy this drop shadow and apply it to the teal rectangle. So the easy way to do that is to hover over either the effects icon or the name of the effects. And while holding the Alt key or the Option key if you're on a Mac, just click and drag that effect to the teal rectangle, and you can see that duplicate right there in the layers panel. Of course, you don't see it happening here because, well, you've got a black background, and it's kind of hard to see a black drop shadow when you have a black background. All right? Pretty straightforward. All right, so what we need to do in order to make these look like they're intersecting is do a little bit of layer masking. But in order to make the drop shadows look right, we have to do this in a weird way, so try and pay attention as close as you can. Let's take gray rectangle and put that into a group by hitting Control or Command G. And once again, you can rename that to gray rectangle if you want. And we're going to load the teal rectangle as a selection. So we're going to Control click or Command click the thumbnail for that teal rectangle, and you can see that the entire rectangle becomes a selection. So still with the gray rectangle group selected in the layers panel there, we are going to Alt click or Option click the layer mask icon down at the bottom of the layers panel. And so what that'll do is mask out everywhere where the teal rectangle is, so that way the gray rectangle doesn't show up. So in order to bring this back, we need to go to our brush tool by hitting the letter B, and I've got a brush from earlier selected, so let me go back and and grab the standard round brush here. And I'm just going to size this down to about 50 or 60 pixels or so, and I'm going to swap my foreground color to white real quick. And what we want to do is paint in white on our layer mask where we want this gray rectangle to overlap with the teal ones. So I can just click and drag here on the mask, and we can start bringing back this portion of the rectangle. So for those of you that are pretty experienced with Photoshop, you might be wondering why I put this into a group and mask the group rather than just masking the gray rectangle by itself. Well, let me show you why real quick. So as you can see right now, we are getting a nice little drop shadow here where we masked it in. And on the other parts, you're not seeing that drop shadow where it's been masked out. If you were to apply this same exact mask to the gray rectangle, you will see this drop shadow start appearing on top of the teal rectangle, which is really not what you want to do. So when you apply this layer mask to a group, it ends up masking everything inside that group, which includes layer effects, which is kind of handy for what we're trying to do here. So if that makes sense, that's great. If not, I guess you could just keep following along, I guess. I don't know. Best way to know how to describe it. So anyway, we're just going to keep painting in white on our layer mask onto the portions where we want the gray rectangle and the drop shadow to appear. So I'm just going to do this to the top left, top right, the bottom, and the left-hand side. And let's just go back up here and finish this off real quick. And almost there. Awesome. All right, so that one's done. Now we will also do the center one right here. And I'll just do this, making sure that I don't accidentally bump into the the other portions of the rectangle, because it would be kind of annoying to try and fix that without just simply undoing it. And so with just a little bit of layer mask magic, we got ourselves some interweaving rectangles. Pretty cool, huh? So one little problem to this is that now there's not a drop shadow on top of the gray being applied from the teal overlapping it. So in order to do that, we need to split the drop shadow from the teal rectangle and put it on top of the gray one. So to do that, here's what we're going to do. Let's right-click the layer effects icon for the teal rectangle and click Create Layer down here at the bottom of the menu. And we'll just hit OK. And now you'll see that the drop shadow for the teal rectangle has been split into its own layer. And now we can just click and drag this sucker up on top of the gray rectangle group. And now you can see we've got this freaking obnoxious drop shadow overlapping everything. So we need to mask this so that it better matches what we want. So let's go ahead and load up the teal rectangle as a selection, once again by control clicking or command clicking the thumbnail for it. And then we will add this as a layer mask by alt-clicking the layer mask icon at the bottom of the layers panel. And that way, now we can only see this drop shadow on the parts that are outside of the teal rectangle, which is, you know, pretty handy for the parts where the teal is overlapping the gray, but not so much where the gray is overlapping the teal. So we need to mask out these bits. So with our layer mask selected, and with black as our foreground color, let's just mask out that little drop shadow that we have overlapping the gray here to get rid of it. And we will do that over here and over there. And we'll also do it on the other parts that are important. Wow, I have no idea why I couldn't say that. That was a little weird. And I believe this should be the last one up here. And voila. So let's take a look, make sure everything seems pretty decent to us. And if you zoom in real close and look at the parts where the teal is overlapping the gray, if you turn that layer off and on, you should now see a nice little drop shadow where the teal is overlapping. So that's just my own little trick of getting this to look as realistic as possible in terms of shadows. I mean, most of this is going to be covered up by the text anyway, but I just thought it was kind of cool to show you guys how you can actually go about doing this in case you wanted to make a similar effect on a future project. So I just thought that would be kind of cool for you guys to know. Now, something that I noticed that I forgot to do, let's go ahead and bring back Blur 1, Blur 2, and the shiny text. I forgot to add in one more layer effects onto the shiny text. Let's go to the effects and add in a gradient overlay onto the text here. And let's go ahead and set the blend mode to overlay. Let's toggle the reverse, and let's click the gradient to edit it. And let's change this black to a medium gray. So let's do a 50% gray. So that's 808080 for the number there. And let's hit OK. And once again, let's change the white color to that color that we've been using. And let's put that as bright as possible. Hit OK, hit OK, hit OK again. And there we go. We got a cool little glow going on the top of our shiny text. Not bad, huh? All right, so I think we're ready to add in a few cool lens flares and stuff. So let's bring up some lens flares from Media Militia. And I'm going to be using lens flares 46 and 47. I'll just click and drag these suckers on in, and I'm going to move this one right here on top of the letter N, hit the check mark, and I'll move this so that the this little flare is just down and to the right of the main flare, and I will hit the check mark once again. And we need to add in some layer masking so that way these lens flares don't have some of these harsh edges that you see here. So let's turn off 47, bring up the layer mask, and let's size up our brush a little bit and very softly mask out the edges here with a soft round brush. Make sure that looks pretty good on all sides. I think that's looking pretty sweet. And we'll also do that same thing to layer 47 here, except the only thing I know that has an edge is this far right hand side. So just quickly masking that up and we should be right as rain, looking pretty good. Now let's change both of these to linear dodge, and that should give us a cool little lens flare that kind of matches the overall color scheme that we're going for here. And one more thing that I need to add in real quick before we proceed on to some cooler stuff like debris and the wings and stuff is to add in a little bit of shadow on the top and the bottom edge to kind of make it look like everything is, kind of fading out a little bit. So we'll select the teal rectangle shadow here, which is right below blur 1, and we're going to go to, actually before we add this, we need to make sure our foreground color is set to black. Very important, otherwise it's kind of a pain in the butt to fix this later. And we'll go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, New Fill Layer, and we'll choose Gradient. And we'll hit OK, and we'll get this black to transparent gradient. And if our foreground color was set to white before we made this, it would be a white to transparent gradient. And that it would just be a little inconvenient to have to go in, change both of those sliders to white, and then proceed. So a little bit more convenient if you already have your foreground color set to black when you do this. Alright, so anyway, let's go ahead and set the style from linear to reflected, and we'll toggle the reverse and turn on the dither, and we'll hit OK. And let's just change the fill down to something like 85%, so that way it's not like overly intense on the edges there, just kind of a nice little shadow rather than an overwhelming one. Alright, so I think we are ready to move on and add in some debris. So let's create a new layer between the gradient fill 1 and the teal rectangle drop shadow. And we will just call this debris, like so. And for this, we're just going to load up some debris brushes. These are some free ones that I found online, and I can provide you guys a link in the description if you'd like to use the same set that I do. If not, just kind of look on Google. There's plenty of cool debris brushes that you can use. And anyway, I'm going to paint this in while using white as my foreground color. So let's just put this like up top like so. And let's put some off to the side. Maybe some down here and over there. And maybe a few more splotches around. And we got ourselves a pretty fine set of debris going on here. We just want to change up a few settings. So let's change the fill of this to 50%, so that way this debris is just a little bit see-through here. And let's also duplicate this debris by hitting Control or Command J, and we are going to move this set of debris up above Blur 2, so that way it's between Blur 2 and Shiny. And for this, let's put the fill down to 0%, and we are going to add in a color overlay. And for this, the blend mode is going to be set to Color Dodge, and we're going to set the opacity on that to 90%. And the color of this is going to start at that same greenish cyan that we've been using. But this time around, I'm going to darken it up quite a bit. So somewhere around there should be a pretty solid color. Looks good to me. That is 048A79 for those of you that want to just tag in the same code that I just happen to get there. And I think we just need one more thing for the background here, and that is to go to our grayscale texture. We are going to duplicate that by hitting Control or Command J. We are going to set the blend mode back to normal, and we are going to move this sucker. Let me close up the properties panel so you can see this a little bit better. We're going to move this texture 20 grayscale copy down below the teal rectangle just above the black layer here. And I want to add some serious contrasting onto this, so that way you only see some of the random bits of it here and there. So to do that, let's open up the adjustments panel, and we'll add in a curves adjustment layer. You can do this with levels if you want, but I like having the habit of just using curves for just about everything I do now. And for this, all we're going to do is drag in the white slider to somewhere around the halfway point, so it'll brighten everything up considerably. And then we'll move the black point somewhere into the middle of this little peak that you see. And it should create this random, jagged, grungy little background that we have going on. And I think that looks pretty cool. You can do whatever the heck you want there, but I like that just how it is. And now I think I'm confident in adding in some of those wings. So let's add in a layer above the debris copy, which I will just go ahead and rename that to debris color, so that way we know it's the color version of the debris. And let's put this new layer into a group by hitting Control or Command G, and we'll call that wings. And on this layer, let's go ahead and load up some cool wings brushes. Where the freak is my freaking mouse at? There it is. Woo! So anyway, some of these Fractal Wings that I've got going on are pretty cool. Again, I can provide the link for you guys in the description, so look there before you ask. And I don't know, I'd like using a random set of wings every time I do this effect. So I'm going to use this one right here. Let's just take a look at how it is. I suppose it's not too bad, but I think it should be a little bit brighter. So I'm going to click twice rather than once, so that way it doubles up the color there. And then let's use our transform tool to kind of rotate it. And on second thought, this is a little bit too bright, so I'll just stick with the one shade, and maybe I'll size this down just a little bit and put this off to the side right around there. And we'll check mark that. And once again, we can duplicate that with Control or Command J, Control T to transform it, right click, flip it horizontally, and then we can put that on the other side like so. And hit the check mark up top. And now what we can do is select the wings group, and we can apply a gradient overlay on top of that. And we can toggle the reverse. And let's change the black color to, let's do the same kind of general color. But this time maybe a little bit more washed out white in color. And so let's hit OK. Hit OK again. Hit OK a third time. And I see we just need to do a little bit of tweaking on the glow for the shiny text, just real quick. So let's go into the shiny text and let's edit the outer glow here. Maybe we can turn off the drop shadow. No, I kind of like it in there. We'll just kind of go to the outer glow and put up the range a little bit, and that should tone it down around the edges there. So maybe not quite so much, maybe around 60%. And let's do a little bit of a before and an after. A little less intense, but I think it might be for the better. Alright guys, so I think we are just about finished. Let's take a nice gander at what we have created. Alright, there you go guys. That is the shiny 3D text effect created with Cinema 4D and Photoshop CC. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I know I went a little bit fast, but I wanted to try and keep the timing of the tutorial down. And you know what guys, that's kind of the beauty of having, videos on YouTube to watch. If you ever have something that is going too fast, you can always just pause and rewind as many times as you want. And I just think that's pretty convenient. So, once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them in the comment section below. And if you have any requests, just send them to me via YouTube, or you can email me at brandon@chichicheckit.com. And once again, guys, thank you very much. Please like the tutorial if you can. I will see you next Tuesday. Peace!